Fellas, North Korean soldiers in Russia are gorging into porn. Well, I'm going to try not to say. This is crazy. North Korean fighters in Russia are gorging into porn, accessing internet for the very first time. Shocking. So we are in Russia, and for those of you who don't know, Russia is at war against Ukraine, and the Russians have kind of struggled for the past couple of years. It depends, you know, some of the Russian supporters will say that Russia is not struggling, Russia is just trying to be nice, not bomb and destroy Ukraine. That's why they're going very slow. Anyway, Russia brought in North Korean fighters, and as per the Southern Korean intelligence service, there's about 12,000 North Korean fighters that have left North Korea going to Russia for training and to fight in Ukraine or to defend a part of Russia. So, there is a report here saying that North Korean soldiers who are deployed in Russia are experiencing an unrestricted access to internet for the very first time in their life. And many are reportedly using it to view pornography. So yes, the North Korean fighters are busy with soap while watching. Yeah, this is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So according to Financial Times journalist Gideon Rackman, the troops who have never had access to internet before are gorging into pornography. Like, you can imagine. I mean, we've all been through this, right? Like, when you're about teenage, you sort of become very curious. You want to know what's happening. You want to discover yourself. It's just shocking for the very first time that you see that on TV or on a screen, you know, and it's crazy. So just imagine adults in North Korea who have never really had access to internet being in a situation where they now have free internet access. Yes, fellas, there is no internet available in North Korea, not for everyday people. So there's a lot of things North Koreans are going to discover through internet. Free access in Russia. They say this marks a strange new chapter for soldiers who have been subject to strict digital control in North Korea. The US Department of Defense was asked about the report, but stated it is unfamiliar with the detail. I mean, obviously they don't want to talk about that. They say they are more worried about increasing presence of North Korean troops on the ground in Ukraine. So these Koreans are in Ukraine with the goal of defending Kurks from Ukrainian attacks. So this is crazy, fellas. I'm sure it'll be for a lot of people to find out that there's no internet in North Korea. There is in fact a lot of things in North Korea that are very interesting to find out. Let's dive into it. The first president is Kim Il-sung. He created the country's policy of junch, or self-reliance, which has essentially cut off North Korea economically and diplomatically for the rest of the world. So basically, this is the very first president of North Korea. His goal was to be independent from the West. North Korea is a country that doesn't want any influence from the West. They don't want your music, they don't want your movies, they don't want your burgers, they don't want Coca-Cola, none of that. And the West doesn't like that. In North Korea, only military and government officials can own a motor vehicle. So apparently most of the people, like everyday people, cannot own a vehicle. You have to use something that's communal. You know, is that nice or not? So in other words, that means you don't have the responsibility to service it. You don't have the responsibility to make sure it's working. All you have to do is to make sure it's clean. You know, don't mess things around. Make sure everything is clean around you. And also, I believe that sometimes when you have to share things, you become more familiar with people, more friendly. You remember in Africa many years ago when people ate together, actually? And by eating together, I mean having a big plate of food, like a big pan of food on the ground with people eating together from the same pot. That's how Africans were. And you can just imagine, even if you had an issue with your friend and your brother, you would have to find a solution around the plate. While you're sitting around with each other, even if you hate one another, you are obliged to talk about something and find a solution. So I am a firmly believer that that's brought us together more than separate us. Then the white man came and taught you can have your own plate, you can have your own fork. Matter of fact, you can serve yourself. You know what happens when you go serve yourself? And there's food for everybody. In most cases, if there are chicken pieces, you're gonna choose the biggest chicken piece for yourself and leave the small one for the rest. Unless you're not hungry. That's what happens. And what does that mean? That is selfishness. I'm choosing myself over everybody. But eating together, then everything is accessible for everybody. You get that? I don't know if you've experienced that. Please let me know. So in North Korea, there's only 28 approved haircuts, not more. So you can only choose among these 28 haircuts and have your haircut. You cannot do anything else. But I mean, the question is, do you really need more than 28 haircuts? Like, how many different haircuts do you have per year or per month? Not many. Most of us most likely have only one haircut, right? So it's really not as bad as it sounds. And apparently unmarried women must have short hair, but married women can have more options. Interesting. The border between North and South Korea is one of the most militarized in the world. Pyongyang has about 1.2 million personnel compared to 600,000 troops in South Korea. So South Korea has the most soldiers in the army. They're certainly one of the biggest armies in the world. There's nearly 6 million North Korean reservists. 6 million soldiers. So reservists are these people, they're just sitting there, but they have training. If they're needed, they can go to the army and fight. You have over 7 million people ready to fight. How can you beat people like that? How many people are in America? How many soldiers in America? Yeah, much less than 1 million. In North Korea, the government severely restricts foreign travel. North Koreans are not allowed to travel abroad without government approval. Meanwhile, every foreign tourist who enters is also closely monitored and their movement restricted. Well, okay. Isn't that what they do in every country? They monitor people? I mean, that's not new. Intelligence services and all that special service. They see you at the airport. They're all dressed in civilian, but they still follow you. They track you down. They know where you stay. They know everything about you. I don't think this is a specific thing for North Korea. I think every country does it, right? You have people in airports for that purpose. So the restriction about the traveling is like they don't want you to go to the enemy. They need to make sure you're going for the right purposes. The truth is most countries do the same. They just don't voice it openly. Do you know how many people get arrested at airports every day because they return from a vacation or another place? Because they're suspected of doing anything that puts the country in jeopardy? Do you know how many people get arrested at the airport because they say something online that government or security service don't like? You see that very much often. So I don't think it's a specificity on North Korea. North Korea has a nuclear weapon program. The country has conducted several nuclear weapon tests several times in the world. Obviously, I think today we all understand that in order for a country to be respected, you must be strong. If you're not strong, you can't be respected. They don't respect you. Look at Afghanistan. They bombed them. Why? Because they had no nuclear weapon. If they had nuclear weapon, nobody would have... You think they would have gone there? No, hell no. Do you remember Iraq? Yes, they went there because they had no nuclear weapon. If Iraq had nuclear weapon, do you think they would have gone there? Syria, same thing. Why do you think they haven't been to North Korea? Okay. Why do you think they have not been in Iran? Because they got so much weapons and power. Why is that? Why do you think they have not bombed Russia or authorized Zelensky to bomb Russia at least? Because they know. So I believe, yeah, you gotta have a level of power to defend yourself. It doesn't really matter who you are. Shouldn't be only a specific type of people that are allowed to have some great level of power while other people are watching. Nobody came to accompany anybody in the world. So that's what it is, fellas. So North Korean soldiers in Russia are gorging into porn. Yes, they left North Korea. Now they're in Russia. They have free access to internet like they have never had before. And what they're doing, man? They are watching porn all day long. And I can imagine some of them have bought soap and many other yeah. You must respect women. You know, yeah, men must respect women. Just imagine how a person's imagination can shift from going to war to imagining two balls. You know what ball I'm talking about? It's insane. And it's crazy how we neglect that power and how much you take for granted accessibility to internet and many things that you see today. Soldiers trained since childhood or whatever, now being sent to war to go and fight, are just busy with okay, it's crazy. Let me know how you feel about this. Do you think they have the right? I mean, I can imagine. I mean, it must be crazy to live in a place where you have no access to, like, some of them have probably never seen a naked woman, right? Like, you've only seen that machine when you get married. Does that make sense? Like, only when you get married you can see a woman with no clothes. Like, unlike today, you can actually go to internet and see whatever you want to see. I mean, I've never done that before. I've never done that before. But imagine in North Korea, you having to be married before you see that. Now that you have accessibility with a cell phone, you can see anything. You go crazy. Let me know how you feel about this. Do you think this is going to be a major threat to Russia and North Korea if the West perhaps hack some system and send them, multiple files of different type of naked women to distract them from the war? Or do you think perhaps North Korea or Russia should impose new sanction or new restricted measures to disallow them from accessing internet? I mean, why would you want to change somebody who for 30 years or 25 years have never had access to internet? Why would you want to give them that freedom right now if their goal is to fight? I don't know. God bless.